Yeah, now I see it.
Okay. Today is June 14th, 2016. My name is Edna Sussman. I'm a reference librarian here at the Half Hollow Hills Community Library. We're interviewing Arnold Fishler, a Korean Army veteran, as part of our Veterans Testimonial Project and in collaboration with the Library of Congress's Veterans History Project. Thank you so much, Arnold, for your service and for being here today and participating in our project. Arnold, where and when were you born?
I was born in the Bronx on August 11th, 1928.
And who were your parents? What were their names and what did they do?
Oh, my mom was Celia Fishler. My father was Henry Fishler. My wife was a homemaker. Mm-hmm. My mother was a homemaker, and my wife was a brush maker.
Your dad was a brush maker?
Uh-huh.
And your mom was a homemaker?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you have any siblings, and what were their names?
Yes. I had older siblings. I was the youngest in the family. My brother was about 12 years older than me, and my sister was about 5 years older than me. Mm. My brother was my mother's first husband's son.
Uh-huh. What was his name?
Jerome.
Uh-huh.
Jerome's father died 2 years after Jerome was born.
Oh, wow.
And my mother remarried my father. I have a sister from my mother's
and your dad.
Dad.
And what's her name?
Beatrice.
Uh-huh. Now, did either of them serve in the military?
My brother did serve in the military, the Second World War. Uh-huh. He also graduated as an engineer just before he was drafted, just like me. Hmm. And he wound up in the. He didn't join the Army. He volunteered for the Air Force before he was drafted, actually. Oh. Mm. And as an engineer, he worked on development of aircraft equipment.
Mm-hmm. Now, what were you doing before you entered the service?
I had shortly graduated engineering school, and I had a job working for the city of New York in planning for I'm trying to remember.
Was it city planning?
No, it was planning for the possibility of war with Russia or something, and the city was interested in building bomb-proof areas in the subway system, and that's what I was doing at that time.
Wow. Now, you were drafted after college?
Yes.
How soon after?
Very soon after.
Where did you go to school?
The city, New York City College.
Uh-huh. So how soon after did you get drafted?
I graduated in June, and I was drafted in October.
And into which branch?
The Army.
Army. So you were drafted. What happened when you departed for training camp and during your early days of training?
Okay. It was really early at the time for preparation for war that they thought was going to happen. And they were planning to build bomb shelters and subway systems. Mm-hmm. And I was doing some design work involving the facilities in the subway system, mm-hmm. like bathrooms, toilets, and stuff, in case people had to stay there.
During your service, you did that?
Yeah, no, this
before.
was before.
Okay. And then you were drafted.
I was drafted about 2 or 3 months after that.
And where did you go for basic training?
I went down to Camp Gordon, Georgia, and it was an Army base that served during the Second World War, and it was a mess. They had let it deteriorate, and my basic training consisted merely of cleaning the various buildings and getting them prepared for the additional veterans that were coming in. But I didn't last there too long.
Oh.
About 2 months after the start of the basic training, I was transferred to an Army Ordnance Division it wasn't a fighting division. It was a division that was preparing munitions.
Oh.
It was an ordnance laboratory, actually.
Where was that?
It was in Washington, D.C., and it was at the Naval Ordnance Lab. And the Army was adapting naval ordnance devices for Army purposes.
What are those exactly?
Okay. The Army wanted a mortar missile that would burst above ground rather than penetrate into the ground and use most of its energy digging up holes. The Navy had such devices, and I was sent to the Naval Ordnance Lab, and I was working there to develop the munitions for the Army.
You think they sent you there because of your engineering background?
Of course, they did.
They took that into account.
Yes.
So how was going back to the basic training, how was that? Did they teach you, what did they teach you there?
I painted walls, I cleaned the latrines, I did just like a cleanup for
I see.
that.
That was your basic training.
But it only lasted a couple of weeks. It really didn't.
And then they sent you to do
They pulled me out of
Okay.
basic and sent me to Washington.
Do you recall your instructors in the training?
No.
So they didn't give you specialized training for this. You knew how to do it, or
Well, I was doing engineering work.
so you were trained in college for engineering. So this you kind of knew what to do.
Of course.
Yeah. Wow, great. How did you adapt to military life? Did you live in barracks there, or?
I just lived in a barrack for about 2 or 3 weeks. When I came to Washington, I spent a few weeks again at. There was a hospital, an Army hospital in Washington, and they put me up there until I got my own apartment.
You didn't
So
have
that
to
was
live,
only like about a month or two.
You didn't have to live on a base.
No.
What was that? What year was that when you?
1950.
50.
Near the end of 1950 into 51.
So you had control over your own living quarters there in your own apartment, the food and
Yes.
everything. And did you serve there the whole time in Washington?
Yes, I did.
Oh, how long were you?
2 years.
2 years. So when you got in August or August of 1950, or when was it?
No, it was in October of 1950.
And then you were discharged 2 years later?
Yes.
So you didn't serve abroad?
I'm sorry?
You didn't serve abroad at
No,
all?
never.
What kind of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving?
Well, mostly with civilian engineers at the Naval Ordnance Laboratory.
Oh, they had civilians there too?
Yes.
Why weren't they in the service, or?
No, the Navy laboratory was.
They employed civilians too?
They were mostly civilians.
Oh. Did you stay in touch with family and friends at that?
My family and friends, of course I did.
Yeah, so you weren't married at that point?
No, I wasn't.
And your family lived in New York still?
Yes.
Now, what did you do for recreation when you were off duty?
I went to dances.
Really? In D.C.?
Yeah. There are a lot of civil agencies and clubs would invite servicemen, to entertain them and to meet other people. It was like social events.
Right. So in the 2 years you were in, you stayed in the same apartment in Washington?
Yes.
Now the war, tell me about the dates of the war again, when you went in before it actually took full force, right?
I never fought.
No, but you were preparing materials for it.
I was preparing munitions for war.
How did it change once the war really took off? Did you have anything different you had to do, or was it?
No, it was. It didn't take off. It took off before I became. Before I was drafted.
So it was going on already?
Yeah.
So, okay, and then it ended in the 50s, right? Middle 50s? 50. And you were out before it ended? Or where were you when the war ended?
I think I was released
Before
the war ended, yeah.
Now, did you have any friends that were sent abroad that you worked with?
No,
because they were all engineers.
I worked with civilians, civilian engineers.
Your field of engineering was what?
Mechanical engineer.
Mechanical.
Yeah, and after I was released, I was working for a private company, Emerson Radio, that used to be in New York, and they had a project for the military, a anti-aircraft missile, and I was working on a fuse for that anti-aircraft missile.
Oh, they did that also, in addition to radios and.
No, I didn't. I had nothing to do with the radios. I had with their munitions department.
Right. I mean, but Emerson did a lot of different things, apparently.
Yes. Yes, especially during the war. I was there about 2 years, and then I was invited by the manager my manager at Emerson transferred to another company, Colesman Instrument, here on Long Island, and he invited me to join him. And that was the most exciting work I've done, because it's on the Apollo program.
Oh, wow.
And I was the program manager on the sextant telescope that was used to go to the moon.
No kidding. How long were you working on that, for that company?
It was about 3 years. Yeah, and it was about 59 or 60 that the first mission went to the moon.
Wow.
And
how interesting is that?
That was the most exciting and most interesting work I've done.
So when you were discharged, you went back to New York and got the job at Emerson? And then you came to Long Island
Yes.
to work on the...
Yeah, I was invited to Emerson because I was working a little with them for the Navy.
Oh, I
and
see.
when I got out, they asked me to join them.
Okay, and so you were with the second company for like 3 years or so, working on the space
I
flight?
was until about I was about 4 years at Emerson, and then my final years to my retirement was at not to the retirement, but to the end of the Apollo program in around 1960.
Okay, and then what?
I went to work for the city of New York.
As an engineer doing...
Engineering department, yeah.
What did you do for them?
I was the controller's engineer. I used to travel around the city seeing whether the bridges were in good condition and
Oh, wow.
highways and various other things. Trying to save money for the city with the electric lights, the street lights that weren't working, that sort of thing.
So you were an engineer for a long time in different capacities. It's interesting. Very interesting work.
Well, I'm an old man, so I've been around a long time.
So when you returned home after the service in D.C., how did you do that how did you get home from D.C.?
I had a car.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I was driving then, yeah.
But they didn't put you on a bus and shift you back home?
No. I was I was very fortunate.
Yeah, really. How was the adjustment to civilian life then?
Wonderful,
Yeah.
because I lived the civilian life really in Washington also. You know, I was meeting people, I was doing what I wanted to do most of the time.
Yeah. Now, did you remain in contact with any of your fellow veterans? Have you?
No, because I didn't have many fellow veterans. Maybe the first 2 months or so that and then we've never saw each other again. Yeah.
Now, did you meet your wife in Washington or when you came back?
No, when I came back.
How did that transpire?
Okay, I was living in the Bronx. I was going to graduate school.
Oh, where?
I earned a graduate school at New York University, where I earned my master's degree in mechanical engineering. And there was they had like a veterans club in New York, and they invited a group of girls from Brooklyn at a dance at some Jewish center. I can't remember. And I met my wife there.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah.
What year was that? Do you remember? What year?
Oh, that was in 1954.
Oh. So
That was like 2 years after I got out of
got
there.
out. So were you married before you moved out to Long Island? When you worked for the Apollo mission?
We were in Queens. We had an apartment in Queens, and we were there about 12 years.
Oh, so your children were born in Queens?
Yeah, my children were born in Queens, and then we moved out to here in Melville.
Okay. So how many? What are your kids' names? How many children did you have?
I have 3 children. My oldest brother and my old brother, they're both dead. My brother and my sister have died. They were in their 80s when they died.
And your children? Where are they?
Children? Yeah. My oldest. I have a sister and a brother. My brother is the oldest. He's in he lives here in Long Island.
You mean your son? Your son?
My son. Yeah.
Okay.
I have an older son, a daughter in the middle, and a young son.
Okay.
Okay. My oldest son is a I can't.
That's okay.
He's
lives.
a medical.
Doctor.
He's. I can't remember what he does, but
Right, in the medical field.
he's in the medical field. My sister's a housewife.
Your daughter. Your daughter.
My daughter.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
getting
okay.
all mixed up.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
No, that's fine. And what does she work? What does she do? She's at home.
She's a housewife now.
Okay.
And she has 3 children.
Nice.
Three grandchildren, and one of them has graduated college. She's teaching. The second one is in college now. He's finishing, and his brother, my youngest grandson, is. He's going to go to college now. He just graduated high school.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah.
And your younger son? Is he in here too in Long Island?
Yeah. I'm the youngest son.
No,
my daughter's in the middle, and my oldest son is I can't remember.
That's okay. But your youngest, you have 2 sons. You said.
I have 2 sons.
So your younger
The
son.
youngest son is a dentist.
Oh, okay. Nice. Okay. Very nice. Are you a member of any veterans organizations at all?
There was a club that I was with. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
We're talking about. Yeah, and that's how I met my wife with that.
Right.
With the military service people.
Now, how do you think your military experiences affected your life?
It seemed to mature me rather quickly. It took me away from my family, my mom, my dad, and stuff. And I was living, mostly on my own there. So I took on my own responsibilities, and that was fine. I matured. I grew up.
Yeah. So when you lived in Washington, did you have the opportunity to go home to visit?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I used to drive back and forth on
Nice.
many occasions.
Are there any what are some life lessons you learned from military service? Can you recall?
To take care of myself, I guess.
So
to be on my own and manage my life.
So you were like 21 or 2 when you...
I was 21.
21. It's young. But I guess most of the draftees were about that age, if not younger.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah. How has your military service impacted your feelings about the military or war in general?
It didn't really have much effect on me because I didn't feel like a soldier for most of the time.
So you didn't have to wear a uniform, or did you?
No, I didn't.
No. You were mainly like an office,
Yeah.
wore regular clothes even.
I can't remember now whether
Okay.
I think I wore regular clothes at that point, but I had every once in a while there was some military function, and I did put my uniform back on.
Oh, okay. Army uniform.
Yeah.
What message would you like to leave for any future generations who might watch this interview?
I think the most important thing for somebody who is growing up is to get a good education and to determine what he has to do in life, what kind of work he has to do, what he's looking for. And it's the education that really does it for him.
So you really worked in the military in your field and then continued the whole rest of your working career in the field you picked.
Oh, well, I picked the engineering field because my brother influenced me.
Oh, really? Why? How's that?
He was a civil engineer.
Oh, right.
I mentioned that
Yes,
before.
right. Was he a civil engineer in the service when he went in? Do you know?
Yes, yes. Before he avoided the draft by enlisting.
Mm-hmm. Was he sent abroad? Do you know?
No, he was sent around the United States to various companies that are manufacturing equipment for the Air Force.
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you did during your military service that you regretted?
No, I think there was nothing I could regret. I think I was very fortunate in how I was treated.
Mm-hmm. And you liked your colleagues there in the naval.
Oh, and it led to a wonderful future for me.
Yeah.
I can't complain. I loved what I was doing.
That's great.
And
the work you did was always mechanical engineering when you left the military and went into the space program, and then after that, where did you work after this Apollo?
I worked for again Emerson Radio, who was manufacturing or designing and manufacturing anti-aircraft missile fuses.
After the space mission, you went back to Emerson?
No. This was after. This was after I left the Army.
Right.
And then when I worked, I retired after the space program.
Oh, I see. So
Yeah.
how long were you there for the space program?
I was there about 5 years, but then I retired from the city of New York.
Oh, that's right. You went to the
that,
city.
yeah, I had mentioned that.
That's right.
I've been working.
After the Apollo, you went to the city.
Yeah, and I worked there 20 years, and I
Wow.
have my, my income from the.
Very nice. Yep. Did you live on Long Island when you worked for the city?
I lived in Queens for Queens.
So when did you move to Long Island for retirement?
We moved to Long Island on. Oh boy.
Were you retired already?
No, I was working for the city of New York when I was in Long Island.
Oh, yeah.
Great Neck.
Okay.
After our children. After our second, we have 3 children.
Mm-hmm.
The first 2 were born in when we were living in Great Neck, and then we moved to Long Island.
To Melville?
Melville, yeah.
And the third one was born
In Melville.
in Melville, I see. Is there anything you feel we haven't discussed or you'd like to add? Any experiences you can remember that you'd like to add?
I don't think so.
And while you were in the military, nothing happened, like you weren't injured or hospitalized or any
No.
bad situations?
No, no bad situations. I think I was very fortunate.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, who was your colleagues in the military? They also were civil mechanical engineers?
Well, I worked with a lot of civilian engineers, but there were various electrical engineers and various other areas
Of engineering?
of mechanics and.
Uh-huh. Did you know what the final result was of your work in the military? What happened to the equipment that you helped produce?
I didn't follow through. I worked in a laboratory, and I was never told what was going to happen after that.
Well, that's what I wondered, if the materials you helped create, if they told you what they were used for or how they were needed.
What they were needed for, and it was research work primarily in developing the designs for the equipment.
Which was?
Missiles. Fuses.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add? You can remember?
I can't think of anything else.
Well, thank you so much, Arnold, for your service again and for sharing your stories with us. We really appreciate it.
Well,
thank you.
I think, I was very lucky in whatever what happened to me, and
you had a good experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, oh, you're welcome.